The insulator is a spacer between the commutator and the bearing. It protects the bearing from the heat created by the armature. If the armature or bearing fail, the insulator can be damaged or melted. Replacing the insulator is a repair that you can do yourself, and I'm going to show you how. I'll begin by removing the cap from the router. Next, I'll separate the electronic control from the router motor. To do that, I'll need to remove several of the wires. First, I'll remove the field wire. Next, the light control harness. Next, the other motor wire. Now remove the cord clamp that secures the power cord to the housing. And now I can remove the electronics assembly from the housing. Now I'll remove the two wires from the brush holders. And I'll remove the screw that secures the plastic housing to the metal housing. Now I'll pull the brush springs away from the brushes and set them aside on the posts. And now I'll separate the plastic housing from the metal housing. Now remove the base from the router motor. I'll remove the collet and the spindle nut. And now I can separate the armature from the motor housing. And now I can separate the armature from the motor housing. Next, I need to remove the bearing from the end of the armature. I'll use a bearing separator to do that. Place it over the bearing and tighten it in place. I'll place the separator over the jaws on my vise, and I'll use a punch in the hole on the end of the armature to tap the armature free from the bearing. I'll need to adjust the separator tighter a couple of times as I do this. Now I can remove the old insulator and install the new one. Now I can reinstall the bearing. I'll place the bearing back onto the armature shaft, and I'll tap it into place with a socket that has a diameter about the same as the inner bearing race. And I'll reinstall the magnet. Now I can reinstall the armature into the motor housing and secure it with the nut. I'll reinstall the collet and place the motor housing back into the base to make it easier to work on. And I'll reinstall the plastic housing into the metal housing. And secure the two housings with the screw. And now I can reinstall the electronics assembly onto the motor housing. I'll align the switch with the housing and then the speed control at the rear of the motor housing. And once the electronics assembly is back in place, I can begin reinstalling all of the wires. I'll place the cord protector back into the housing and then secure the cord with the cord clamp. And I'll finish by reinstalling the cap. And that's how you can replace the insulator on your router.